It's a new year, a new journey. God is calling you to step into uncharted territory with faith and boldness. Hey there, beautiful. Yes, I am absolutely wearing a tiara today. And no, it's not just for fun. Though let's be honest, it is fun. But this little crown is more than just an accessory. It's a statement. It's a symbol of identity, authority, and purpose. And you see here at Hadassah Ministries, we believe every woman is royalty in the kingdom of God. You are loved, chosen, and crowned with His purpose. And let's be real, sometimes life tries to knock the tiara right off our heads, doesn't it? There's challenges, there's doubts, there's fears, but guess what? We adjust our crowns, we put a smile on our face, and we keep going. So grab your Bible, coffee, water, tea, maybe even your own tiara, because today we're diving into a powerful promise that will remind you just how unstoppable you are in Him. Well, thanks for joining me again for another lesson in Joshua. Today we're going to look at Joshua 1:5, and this is a promise for a lifetime. And this verse says, let me find it. No one will be able to stand against you as long as you live, for I will be with you as I was with Moses. I will not fail you or abandon you. You see, when God had spoke these words to Joshua, He wasn't just offering encouragement for the task at hand. He was given Joshua a promise for a lifetime. If you look up the Hebrew word for days, which probably screwing up the pronunciation, but it's yamim, which is Yamim. This signifies the entirety of one's life journey. Wow, isn't that a beautiful promise? God was telling Joshua, no matter where you go, I'll be there with you. And we have that same promise. In fact, the word first tells us this I am having the worst time today. The word first tells us this in Deuteronomy 31:6, and it is the promise to the Israelites through Moses. Now, Moses had just told the people that he would not be crossing over the Jordan with them. He would not be entering into the promised land. And he was encouraging them, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Then he turns to Joshua and he says to him in front of everyone, be strong and courageous, for you must go with this people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors to give them. And here's my favorite part. Verse 8, the Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Joshua was standing on the edge of the promised land. He was facing some overwhelming challenges, but God assured him that just as he had been faithful to Moses, he was going to be faithful to him. So God is telling us that today. I don't know what you're facing. I don't know what problems you're having. I know we all have each and every one of us have something going on in our lives. But God is promising us that He will not leave us. He will be with us every step of the way. He extends that promise into the New Testament, under the New Covenant. Hebrews 13:5 says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. This is God's unwavering commitment to us, His people. The Hebrew word for leave, rapa, means to let go or abandon, while forsake, azeb, implies leaving behind or neglecting. God's not going to do that. He is not going to abandon us. He is not going to leave us behind or neglect us. This was not an empty promise. Joshua had walked with Moses. He had witnessed God's power and faithfulness. He was there during the plagues of Egypt. He was there at the parting of the Red Sea. He saw the manna fall from heaven. He saw victories in battle. Joshua had seen firsthand that God could be trusted. He knew he could stand on this promise. And I know what people are asking, why? Why was Moses not able to cross into the promised land? Why was he being punished? But there are so many different reasons. I'm going to turn to Deuteronomy 32. Give me just a second. And if you'd like, you can turn there also. It's Deuteronomy 32, verse 51 and 52. And it says, "Both of you betrayed me with the Israelites at the waters of Meribah and Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. You failed to demonstrate my holiness to the people of Israel there. So you will see the land from a distance, but you may not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel." So yeah, he was being punished. See, Moses broke faith with God at Meribah Kadesh, which is the desert of Zin. We just read that. He failed to uphold God's holiness before the Israelites, and Moses could see the promised land, but he was not permitted to enter. So what happened at the desert of Zin? Well, Numbers 20, if you go back and read that chapter, here's the context. They were near the end of the 40 years of wandering. The Israelites lacked water and they started complaining. So Moses and Aaron sought God at the tent of meeting. God instructed them to speak to the rock to bring forth water. Well, Moses disobeyed. He struck the rock twice with his staff instead of speaking. He spoke angrily to the people, saying, "Must we bring you water?" And he was talking about him and Aaron, not God. He took credit for the miracle, failing to honor God publicly. So here's some key lessons from Moses' action that we can learn. Disobedience is ignoring God's specific command to speak to the rock. Previously, God had commanded striking the rock in Exodus 17, but this time he required faith and obedience. There was also an issue with pride. You see, Moses was claiming the credit for the miracle, implying that him and Aaron provided the water, and he was failing to give God the credit for the miracle, publicly misrepresenting his holiness. There's also a typology misrepresentation. You see, the rock symbolizes Christ in 1 Corinthians 10:4. You can look that up. But striking the rock again ruined the imagery of Christ's once and for all sacrifice. So Moses was being punished. He was barred from leading Israel into the promised land. And despite these harsh consequences, though, Moses did not complain. He knew what he had done, and he remained faithful in leadership and service until the very end. But you know what? Our God is compassionate. He is holy, and he loves us. And he loved Moses. This was his friend. And God allowed Moses to see the promised land from Mount Nebo. Deuteronomy 34, I'll read it really quick. Verses 4 and 5. It says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, This is the land I promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, when I said, I will give it to your descendants. I have now allowed you to see it with your own eyes, but you will not enter the land." So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, just as the Lord had said. There was also another spiritual symbolism. Moses represented the old covenant, the law. He brought us the law down from Mount Sinai. But the law is not what can save us. The law is not what can deliver us. Do you know that Joshua is another name for Jesus? Joshua represented that salvation comes from God, from Jesus. Jesus is the way, he is the truth, and the life. Remember when Moses changed Joshua's name? from Hosea to Joshua. His original name meant he saves, but Joshua means God is the one who saves. So Joshua had to be the one to lead the people into the promised land because he represented Jesus and he represented the new covenant. Yet stepping into leadership likely stirred some doubts. Joshua had to choose to trust God's promise. Like Joshua, we often find ourselves, in places where it's hard to trust when we're stepping into the unknown, or maybe we're carrying the weight of responsibility. Sometimes the scars of the past experiences make us wonder if God will really come through. But the same God who was with Moses, with Joshua, and with the generations before us is the same God who is with us today. His faithfulness doesn't change with the seasons of life. It is eternal. There is something powerful about testimonies. Our faith is strengthened when we hear or recall how God had worked in the past. Joshua could remember Moses' stories and his own experiences of God's provision in the wilderness. In the same way, when we look back at our lives or we listen to others share their stories, we see evidence of a God who never leaves or forsakes his children. God's promise to Joshua is also his promise to us. Through Jesus, we are assured of his presence forever. He is not a God who shows up just for the big moments. He is with us for the long haul. So here's something I want you to reflect on. How have you seen God's faithfulness in your life or the lives of others? Are there areas where you need to trust God's promise more deeply? So here's my challenge for you. Write down one testimony of God's faithfulness in your life and share it with someone this week. Your story could be the encouragement that they need to trust him more. Quickly, my testimony. Here I am, doing what I'm challenging you to do. I'm going to testify to God's goodness and grace. I had moved to Karis, out to Colorado to go to Karis Bible College. I had been there a few months. I had not found a job yet. It was about 5 or 6 months after I had moved there. Money was kind of running low, and I went out to dinner with a couple friends. We were celebrating one of their birthdays. And I went up to the counter to order my food and pay for it, and my debit card got rejected. And I thought, what? I know I got some money in there. What's going on? So I didn't worry about it. I thought I would just check on it later. So I pulled out my wallet, and I had a $20 bill. And that was all the money I had in my wallet. But I handed it over, paid for my meal, and went and sat down. I was the first to sit down at the table and thought, I'm just going to pull up my bank app really quick. And I looked at it and I pulled it up, and my account was $1,700 in the negative. I thought, what in the world? What happened? Why in the world am I out of money? You see, before I had moved out there, I had taken an ambulance to the hospital. I'd had this allergic reaction. It was dire. I was having anaphylaxis, so I couldn't breathe, and they had to get me to the hospital quickly. So I was in an ambulance. Somehow the bill didn't get paid. I don't know. The insurance didn't cover. I don't know what happened, but they actually went in and took the money from my checking account, which is legal. And because it's run by the county, and the ambulance system is run by the county, and the county was able to go in and just take that money right out. Well, you understand, this was the last of my money. I had been applying for jobs, I had been believing, and I didn't know what to do. I was close to tears, but I was trying to hold it together during the dinner, and I was trying to be cheerful and eat and have a good time. So I got in the car with my roommate afterwards, and I looked at her and I burst out crying. And she's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? What's wrong? I said, you have to pray with me. And I explained what happened. I was like, I have no money in my account. I don't know what I'm going to do. Rent's going to be coming up. Food, all I had left now was the change for the $20 bill for my dinner. I mean, what was I going to do? She prayed with me. We got home. I went back to my apartment. I decided to text my mom and my sister, and I said, this is what's happening. I don't want to call you. I don't want to talk because I'm praying and I'm believing, and right now I'm too upset. I don't want to talk negatively. Because how many knows that we are bound by our words? Words are very powerful. There's a great lesson in that. But the next morning, my sister called me. She said, I think you should sell your camper. And I'd had this camper I had left at my parents' house back in North Carolina. And I tried selling it before I went to Karis, didn't sell, and I just thought, well, I'll just hang on to it. And I said, well, I tried selling it before, but you know what? I'm going to trust you in this, and I'm going to believe in it. Well, meantime, my sweet, wonderful sister and brother-in-law sent me some money as a gift, which is, that was such a blessing. But I immediately put it on Facebook, put all the pictures, all of what I wanted, what I was asking. I was asking $5,000 for it. It was a little teardrop camper. It was a fantastic little camper. My dad had built for me. Anyway, the next day I got a hit, and it was a young man who wanted my camper. And I said, well, it's at my parents' house. My dad will be glad to show it to you. And I gave him the address and everything, told my dad the time, and set everything up for them. The guy showed up the next day, loved it. My dad and my nephew were out there, and they were showing it to him. He decided to pay cash for it and bought it right then on the spot. And you know the bonus? That my dad and my nephew led that young man to the Lord right then and there. Yeah, so not only did the Lord provide me with $5,000 by selling my camper, a life was saved. And if that's not a testimony, I don't know what is. But that's just proof of God's love and his faithfulness to us. So I hope that encourages you. It's something that, like I said, testimony actually means God will do it again. And so that's why it's so important for us. And that's why Joshua was he knew he could trust God because he had seen it. He had seen it over and over and over. So write down your testimonies. Remind yourself of when you need that promise, remind it to you. And know that God is with you. He loves you, and he's always, always going to be standing right there beside you. So here's the thing, friend. This tiara isn't just for looks. It's a reminder that you're not forgotten, you're not forsaken, and never alone. And God has crowned you with his love, his presence, and his promises. So tell me, how has God been faithful in your life? Drop a comment below. And if this message encouraged you, share it with a friend who needs a reminder to fix her crown today. Oh, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Turn on your notifications. We're just getting started, and I can't wait to walk this journey out with you. So until next time, remember, you are royalty, you are loved, and you were made for such a time as this. Now go wear your tiara proudly and walk boldly in his promise. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you'll never miss an update. See you in the next one.